My ex stood up at dinner, called me a failure in front of her whole family, then threw my wallet on the table. Now she's broke, dumped, and begging me to shut it all down. I handed her the divorce papers instead. She didn't even wait until dinner was over. Emily clinked her wine glass with a spoon, standing up in front of the long oak table packed with her family. Her voice cut through the low hum of conversation like a knife. "I just want to say something real quick," she announced, flashing a tight smile. "Because I've been holding this in way too long." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. I already knew it was about me. The tension had been building for weeks, months even, and Emily never let anything simmer too long without turning it into a performance. "My husband," she continued, gesturing toward me like I was a piece of furniture, "has been struggling lately. Financially, emotionally, professionally. Basically, he's just been failing." There were chuckles. Low and uncomfortable at first, but enough to sting. Her sister Rachel gave a little laugh, then covered her mouth. Her mom looked anywhere but at me. Then came Jeff, Emily's loudmouth brother-in-law, who let out a full laugh and muttered, "Guess we know who's not paying for Christmas this year." And then she did it. Emily reached into her purse, pulled out my wallet, and tossed it on the table in front of me. It slapped the wood with a dull thud. "Here," she said, her voice venom-laced and smug. "You might want to check if there's anything left in there. I deserve better than this." Jeff nearly choked on his beer, laughing so hard he slapped the table. "Goddamn, Emily." I didn't move. Didn't say a word. My whole body felt frozen, like I'd been dropped into an ice bath. I looked down at my wallet, lying there like a piece of evidence in a trial I didn't even realize was happening. I thought about speaking. Thought about standing up and defending myself. Telling everyone about the long hours, the rejected job applications, the nights I spent staring at the ceiling wondering if I was just broken. But what was the point? No one in that room was on my side. Not Rachel. Not Jeff. Not even Emily, the woman who once promised we'd face everything together. Instead, I stood up. Slowly. Quietly. And I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I didn't grab my coat. I just left, hearing Jeff's laugh echo behind me as I stepped into the cold night. The text started that night. "Emily first. Where did you go? Seriously? You're gonna pull this immature shit in front of my family." Then her mom. "Sweetheart, can we talk? Everyone's a little tense, but we can sort this out." Rachel chimed in with a heart emoji and a "hope you're okay." By morning, the panic had started to show. Emily's messages turned from snide to desperate. "Can you just answer me? I didn't mean it like that. You just left. I'm scared." I didn't answer. Not that day. Not the next. I watched it all play out from a distance. Emily's carefully constructed world, built on performative smiles and public takedowns, started to crack without me playing the part she'd assigned me. I wasn't going to argue. Wasn't going to defend myself. Let her family sit in the silence I left behind. Let them feel, for once, what it was like when I stopped cleaning up the mess. Something had shifted inside me, and there was no going back. It had been 4 days since I walked out. 4 days of silence. No calls, no replies, no explanations. Just me, and the kind of quiet that didn't demand anything from me. I hadn't planned on going back that day. I just needed to grab some of my things. A few clothes, some important paperwork. I figured I'd be in and out in 15 minutes. But the moment I turned onto our driveway, I knew something was off. There were fresh tire tracks in the gravel, not mine. The tires were wider than Emily's sedan, maybe a truck. The kind of detail you'd only notice if you'd stared at that driveway as much as I had while pacing and thinking. I killed the engine and stepped out slowly. The front door was unlocked, which didn't surprise me. Emily never bothered locking it unless she was trying to make a point. Inside, the house was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Suspicious quiet. The kind of quiet that usually came right before someone tells you they're leaving. I walked past the living room, through the kitchen, and stopped dead in the hallway. Our bedroom door was wide open. And there she was. Emily stood at the foot of the bed, halfway through packing a suitcase. The closet was open, and a few of her nicer dresses were laid out neatly on the comforter. She didn't hear me at first. She was too focused, folding one of the sweaters I bought her last Christmas. The one she claimed was a little too basic for her style, but never returned. Then I saw it on the nightstand. The watch. A black and gold custom-designed piece from a small independent maker in Seattle. I had saved for 6 months to buy it. She barely wore it, always claiming it was too bulky. But here she was, wrapping it in tissue paper like it was some precious artifact. She turned around with a start, the watch still in her hand. "Oh my God," she said, startled. "You scared the hell out of me." I said nothing. Just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. She looked around quickly, as if trying to decide whether to hide the suitcase or keep playing innocent. "You're not supposed to be here," she said after a second, her voice harder now. "You left." "Clearly not soon enough," I said calmly. She tried to scoff, but it didn't land. Her eyes flicked to the watch in her hand, then to the suitcase. "I was just reorganizing some things," she said. "You said you weren't coming back." You were packing, I said. Not organizing. She tried to look defiant, but the flush in her cheeks gave her away. Fine, she snapped. Yes, I'm leaving. Does it really matter at this point? For who? She didn't answer. Then I noticed a pile of jewelry boxes on the dresser, gifts from me over the years. A bracelet I gave her for our anniversary. The earrings I surprised her with after a big contract I landed. A silver pendant with our initials engraved on the back. All lined up neatly, as if she were making an inventory. This for Tony? I asked. Her face froze. You think I don't know? I continued. About the text you deleted. The extra dinner charges to your work card. The sudden late meetings. I don't have to explain myself to you, she said, voice sharp. No, you don't, I agreed. But you will to the attorney. And probably your HR department. She blinked. What? I've been documenting things for months, Emily. Text messages, bank statements, receipts. I even pulled the cloud backups of your deleted messages. You weren't subtle. The smugness drained from her face. She looked down at the watch still in her hand like it was something burning her fingers. You were planning this? She asked, stunned. No, I said. I was hoping I wouldn't have to. I walked over, picked up the watch, and placed it back on the nightstand. Take what you want, I said, turning to leave. Just remember, I'm not the one with anything to hide anymore. And I left her standing there, suitcase half-packed, eyes wide, for once completely silent. She showed up at my temporary apartment the next morning. No warning. Just a loud knock on the door at 8:13 a.m., like she knew I'd still be sipping coffee and trying to piece together whatever the hell my life had become. I opened the door halfway. She stood there in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, not hers, probably Tony's, with sunglasses pushed up on her head and a smirk that didn't match the situation. I figured we should talk, she said, pushing past me without waiting for permission. I didn't stop her. She walked in like she owned the place, glancing around at the bare walls and folded laundry still on the couch. Wow, she muttered. You really downgraded. Get to the point, I said. Emily turned around slowly and folded her arms, like she was bracing for some big dramatic confession. Look, she started. What happened yesterday was messy. But we both know it's been a long time coming. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She took that as permission to keep going. Tony's different, she said. He gets me. He actually listens to me. He has goals, real goals. Not survival goals like you. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, letting her run her mouth. You used to dream big, you know, she continued. Now all you do is coast. You go through the motions. You settle. You mean I work and try to keep the lights on? I asked. That's coasting. She rolled her eyes. You think doing the bare minimum counts as ambition? God. Tony owns property. He invests. He's not scared of risk. I laughed quietly. Emily stepped closer. You know I tried, right? I tried to be patient. But I'm not built for mediocrity. I want more. I deserve more. There it was. The line she had probably rehearsed in her head. The one that made her the hero in her own story. You think leaving your marriage for your boss makes you brave? I asked, voice even. You think insulting the man who stood beside you for 7 years makes you classy? She didn't answer. Just kept that smug little grin like she thought I was bluffing. You seem awfully confident for someone who just got caught lying and stealing, I said. Don't act like a victim, she snapped. You weren't exactly husband of the year material. You never made me feel like a woman. Like someone worth fighting for. I stared at her, then stepped aside and pointed to the door. You're free to go, I said. No one's stopping you. She blinked. That's it. You want a scene? I asked. You already made one in front of your whole family. What else do you want? Applause. I expected you to beg, she said flatly. Then you really don't know me. Emily grabbed her tote bag and slung it over her shoulder. She moved toward the door, but just before stepping out, she paused. You'll regret this. I already regret wasting years on someone who thinks loyalty is boring. Her mouth tightened, but she didn't say another word. She turned, walked out, and didn't look back. I closed the door behind her and stood there for a moment, listening to the click of her heels fade down the hall. No anger, no satisfaction, just a quiet clarity. She was gone, and this time, I didn't feel the need to chase her. It took me exactly 48 hours to shake off the emotional fog. After she walked out of my apartment, I sat still for almost an hour, not angry, not sad, just still. Like something in me had finally powered down, and what was left was nothing but silence. Then I got to work. I started with my bank statements. I printed everything from the past 2 years and highlighted each transaction tied to Emily, the surprise spa days, the boutique purchases, the shady business dinners that always happened to show up during her late nights at work. Next, I dug through the cloud backups of her deleted texts. She'd never been good at tech, thought erasing a message on her phone meant it was gone forever. But I had everything synced. Every kissy face emoji to Tony. Every he'll never find out she sent to her coworker Megan. Every picture. I cataloged it all, labeled folders, timestamps, screen recordings. I wasn't even mad anymore. I was documenting. Then I made a list. People who deserved to know the truth. I started with Rachel, her sister. She had always played the neutral one. Too nice to speak up, too passive to intervene. But she was also the kind of person who hated being lied to. I texted her. I think you deserve to know what's really going on. Can I send you something? 5 minutes later, she replied. Please do. I've had a weird feeling for months. I sent her a PDF file titled Emily's Truth. 27 pages. Receipts. Texts. Bank records. The works. An hour later, she called me. Oh my God, Rachel said. I don't even know what to say. Say nothing, I told her. Just think about who you're defending next time she tells you I abandoned her. The silence on her end said everything. By the end of the day, word started to spread. I didn't blast it all over social media or email her entire contact list. I didn't need to. One person in a tight-knit family can set a wildfire with just a few quiet texts. Greg reached out next. We weren't close friends, more like distant colleagues. He used to work with me before taking a job at Tony's firm. I hadn't talked to him in almost a year. Hey man, I heard about the situation. Want to talk? We met for coffee the next day. Greg looked uncomfortable at first, but it didn't take long for him to open up. I always thought something was weird with those two, he said, stirring his coffee. Tony's had a reputation. Likes to get involved with women who can boost his image. Doesn't stick around after that. I nodded slowly. You think he's using her? Greg didn't hesitate. I'd bet money on it. We talked for nearly an hour. He confirmed what I had suspected, that Tony had a pattern of getting involved with women on his team, then distancing himself as soon as the gossip kicked in. It was about power, optics, control. Emily had no idea she was just the latest marketing stunt. By that evening, I'd sent carefully worded messages to a few more people who had defended her or asked me to just be civil during the separation. I didn't rant. I didn't accuse. I just showed them the truth. Because the truth doesn't need to scream, it just needs time to breathe. And now it was finally breathing. One by one, the foundation she built was starting to crack. I didn't say a word to her. Didn't respond to her texts. Didn't comment when mutual friends started unfollowing her online. I just watched, quietly, as the truth did what truth always does. It worked its way to the surface. And for the first time in years, I wasn't on defense. I was in control. It started with a knock at my door, not the angry kind, not Emily's brand of entitled pounding. Just a quiet, deliberate knock. I opened it to find someone I hadn't seen in years. Samantha. She smiled, soft but tired. Hey, mind if I come in? Samantha and I had gone to college together. We weren't close back then, ran in different circles, but I remembered her as sharp, no-nonsense, and painfully honest. Last I'd heard, she worked in corporate strategy for a firm in the city. I stepped aside. Sure. Come in. We sat across from each other, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, her eyes scanning the living room like she was still piecing together how she ended up here. I heard about everything, she said eventually. Emily. Tony. The fallout. I didn't respond. She looked up at me. You're not the first one he's done this to. That got my attention. Samantha leaned forward slightly. I used to work with Tony. For about 6 months. Long enough to see who he really is. And who is he? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. A user, she said flatly. He finds women he can leverage. Ones with just enough shine to make him look like a rising star. Then he moves on the second they become inconvenient. Or embarrassing. Or expensive. I raised an eyebrow. How do you know all this? She set her mug down. Because I was one of them. Briefly. Until I saw the pattern and got out before the damage was permanent. I sat back, letting that sink in. She looked at me carefully. I'm not here to gossip. I'm here because I know how this ends. And I figured you might want to know your next move. I studied her. Why now? Because people like Tony don't just wreck relationships. They wreck careers. And from what I hear, you've already started collecting receipts. I gave her a slow nod. I have contacts, she continued. In HR, legal, internal compliance. I've seen how he cooks the books to cover his personal expenses. How he manipulates timesheets. If you want to bring him down, I can show you where to look. I didn't answer right away. I was used to being alone in this. Used to moving in silence, trusting no one but myself. But something about the way she talked, it wasn't about revenge. It was about precision. I'm not trying to ruin him, I said carefully. I just want the truth out. She nodded. That's exactly how you ruin men like Tony. We talked for another hour. Names, timelines, red flags to look for. She offered to help discreetly, no promises, no strings. By the time she left, I had more than I started with. Leverage, direction, and something I didn't expect, an ally. As I closed the door behind her, I realized something else. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about cutting the roots of the rot. Carefully, quietly, and I was getting good at that. It happened on a Tuesday morning, right as I was pouring coffee. I heard the knock and didn't even have to check. The rhythm, the insistence, the way it rattled the door. It was her. Of course it was. I took a sip first, then another. Let her wait. When I finally opened the door, Emily was standing there in full meltdown mode. Hair tied up in a messy bun, sunglasses shoved on her head, mascara smudged just enough to suggest she hadn't slept. Seriously, she said, brushing past me like she still lived there. You're just drinking coffee? While everything falls apart, I didn't respond. Just walked back to the kitchen and grabbed my mug again. Tony's losing it, she said, pacing now. His board got wind of some rumors. There's a goddamn audit. An audit, and it's all because of you. I leaned against the counter and took another sip. I haven't spoken to Tony. She whirled on me. Don't play dumb. You know what you did. You started spreading things, showing people messages, receipts, bank stuff. Rachel won't even return my texts. You poisoned my family against me. Correction, I said. You did that. Emily glared. You think this is funny? No, I said. It's inevitable. She paused like she didn't know what to do with that answer. Then she scoffed and ran a hand through her hair. He's pulling back, she muttered. Tony. He said he needs space while the company deals with this. Can you believe that? I could, and I didn't feel the slightest bit surprised. She sat on the edge of the couch, eyes scanning the room like she expected it to shrink around her. I left everything for him. Everything. And now he's acting like I'm some mistake. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch until she couldn't take it anymore. This is your fault, she snapped. You ruined everything. You turned everyone against me. You planned this. I shook my head. No. You planned your own downfall. I just stopped covering it up. Emily stood suddenly, her voice louder now. You need to fix this. I raised an eyebrow. Fix what exactly? You know people, she said. You've been talking to Greg, to my sister. You can shut it down. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. That you overreacted. That I was under stress. I laughed, short and bitter. You want me to clean up your mess after you left me to drown in it. Her face twisted. I made a mistake, okay? But I don't deserve this. You made a choice, I corrected. And now you get to live with it. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she thought that would help. I don't have anywhere else to go. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you torched every bridge behind you. You don't mean that, she said, her voice trembling. You've always been the one who forgives. Who picks up the pieces. I looked her dead in the eyes. Not anymore. She blinked, and for a second I saw it, real panic. The kind that doesn't come from losing comfort, but from realizing you have no more control. You'll regret this, she whispered. I set my coffee down and walked to the door. No, I said, opening it wide. You will. She didn't move right away. Then, slowly, she walked out, shoulders hunched, lips pressed tight, carrying all the weight she once tried to leave on me. I shut the door behind her. And for the first time in our entire marriage, the only voice I heard was my own. 2 weeks later, the headlines started showing up. Not the kind that made national news, not yet, but enough to make people whisper. Enough to shake the foundation Tony had spent years pretending to build. Senior exec under review amid expense report discrepancies. Whispers of misconduct inside corporate finance department. I didn't submit anything directly. I didn't have to. The evidence had a way of surfacing, especially when it was passed through the right people. Quietly. Strategically. Samantha knew who to nudge. Greg knew which files to look at. I just handed off the truth and stepped back. Tony's empire wasn't built on fraud, not completely, but it was propped up by arrogance, reckless spending, and a habit of mistaking charm for immunity. Turns out, that combination doesn't survive an audit. While Tony scrambled to explain vacations labeled as business development and dinner receipts signed by women who weren't employees, Emily tried to hold the house of cards together. But the thing about cards is, once they fall, they don't go back the same. Her Instagram turned quiet first. The glossy brunch pic stopped. No more rooftop selfies with captions like manifesting luxury or rise and grind. Just silence. Then came the Facebook update. Emily is taking a break from social media. I watched, but I didn't gloat. I wasn't in this for revenge. I was in it for the ending. The one where the people who called me a failure finally had to answer for their own. And it came quicker than I expected. Rachel, her sister, messaged me one evening. I owe you an apology. I didn't know how bad it really was. I didn't rub it in. I just told her the truth. You weren't supposed to know. She made sure of that. From there, the ripple spread. One by one, people Emily had lied to coworkers, friends, even a couple of her cousins, reached out to say the same thing. I didn't see it. I should have. I didn't need their apologies. But I accepted them anyway. It wasn't about being right. It was about being free. Meanwhile, Tony was quietly pushed into a leave of absence. Pending investigation, they called it. Which everyone knew meant, start packing your office. And Emily? She tried to save face. She posted a vague story about taking time for self-care and learning who's really there for you. But the damage was done. The job she left me for? Gone. The man she staked her reputation on? Exposed. The lifestyle she bragged about? Funded by debt and disappearing fast. Turns out, maxed credit cards don't respect vision boards. And as for me, I was rebuilding. Quietly. I'd started working again, consulting gigs, mostly. Enough to stay busy, not enough to get swallowed. I had coffee with Greg twice a week. Caught up with Rachel, who, to her credit, didn't try to spin things. You handled it with more grace than I would have, she told me once. I just smiled. Because grace wasn't what I was aiming for. It was clarity. And now that the dust had settled, I could see everything clearly. Tony had burned out. Emily had collapsed under the weight of her own performance. And I, the man she called mediocre, was still standing. Still calm. Still here. Because I never needed applause. I just needed the truth to do its job. And it had. She showed up at my workplace like she owned the place. It was a Friday. Just past lunch. I was sitting in a quiet office downtown, consulting on a new project, sipping lukewarm coffee and reading through budget proposals when my coworker poked her head in. "There's someone asking for you in the lobby," she said, her tone careful. I already knew. I stood slowly, adjusted my sleeves, and took the stairs instead of the elevator. I wanted the extra seconds to breathe. Emily was standing by the front desk, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her head even though we were indoors. She looked thinner, paler, and for once, she wasn't trying to put on a show. "Hey," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I looked at the receptionist, who was trying not to stare. Then I gestured toward the side conference room. Once inside, I shut the door and leaned against the wall. "Say what you came to say." Emily didn't sit. She just stood there, shifting her weight back and forth, like even her body was unsure of this moment. "I was wrong," she started. "About everything." I said nothing. I made a mess of things. I listened to the wrong people. I didn't realize how much you meant to me until Tony dumped you? I interrupted. She flinched. "It's not like that." I raised an eyebrow. "Then tell me how it is." She looked at the floor. "He's gone. The job's gone. Everything I thought I had. It wasn't real." I crossed my arms. "Neither was your loyalty." "I know I hurt you," she whispered. "But we had something. I can't stop thinking about that. That something died the moment you humiliated me in front of your family and threw my wallet on the table like I was some embarrassment." Emily finally looked at me. "I'm not asking for things to go back to the way they were. I'm just asking for a second chance." I walked to the desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a manila envelope. I handed it to her slowly. "What's this?" she asked. "Our divorce settlement," I said. "Already filed. My lawyer will walk you through it." She looked down at the envelope like it had grown teeth. "You're serious?" "Completely." She opened it, flipped through the pages. Her face paled. "You're leaving me with nothing." I stayed quiet. Her eyes scanned the numbers. The asset breakdown. The clause about the apartment she'd forfeited when she walked out without contest. The clear documentation of her spending, the joint account withdrawals, the unauthorized charges, the texts. "You planned this," she said, her voice shaking. "No," I said. "I protected myself. The moment you chose someone else, I stopped being your backup plan." She slammed the envelope shut. "This isn't fair." "No, Emily," I said calmly. "What wasn't fair was being loyal to someone who treated me like an obstacle. What wasn't fair was watching you lie, cheat, and then come crawling back when the ground gave out beneath you." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't look away. "I loved you," she whispered. "No," I said. "You loved what I gave you. The stability, the image, the patience. You never loved me. You tolerated me until someone shinier came along." She stepped closer. "Can't we talk?" "Try to be." I reached for the door, opened it, and called down the hall. "Security." She blinked. "You're having me escorted out?" "This is a place of business," I said. "You don't belong here anymore." She hesitated, then finally backed away. "You're going to regret this," she hissed as she passed me. "I already did," I replied. Security met her at the end of the hall. She didn't fight. Just walked away, envelope clutched in her hand, her world reduced to ashes and paperwork. And I, the man she once called useless, closed the door behind her. Clean. Final. Done. The end came quietly. No headlines. No dramatic blowout. Just a series of unravelings, small, measured, permanent. Tony's audit turned into a full-blown internal investigation. Turns out, when you spend years treating the company credit card like a personal piggy bank, someone eventually notices. Samantha kept me in the loop. Not details, not gossip, just enough to know things were moving. Expense reports didn't match travel logs. Vendor payments were flagged. One particular dinner with Emily had been filed under executive mentoring. Apparently, the compliance team didn't buy that. Within weeks, Tony's office was empty. They called it a leadership transition, but no one believed it. Word spread fast in those circles. He wasn't blacklisted, not yet, but his name was being quietly removed from meetings, emails, event invites. His LinkedIn went suspiciously silent. And Emily? She tried to hold on, tried to pretend none of it was her fault. That Tony's downfall was unrelated, that she was just an innocent bystander in someone else's mess. But the people around her were no longer buying it. Rachel cut ties completely. I heard from her once more, briefly. She's blaming everyone. Me, you, the company, even Tony. Sounds familiar, I replied. She didn't argue. One by one, the people who used to prop Emily up started slipping away. Former friends, coworkers. Her cousin who once toasted to her fearless ambition now left her text unread. And the money? Gone. With Tony out, her consulting gig disappeared. The savings, what little was left, had gone to lease payments and debt. All the expensive dinners and designer purses didn't sell well in a panic. She tried to spin her situation into a reinvention arc, online. It fell flat. The final crack came from her own family. Her mother called me. I didn't recognize the number at first, and I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. Hello? There was a pause. Then, it's Linda, Emily's mom. I stayed silent. She's struggling, she said, her voice tight. She won't admit it, but things are bad. I didn't respond. She said you ruined her life, she added, quieter now. But I don't think that's true anymore. I kept my tone steady. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped covering for her. Linda exhaled. She said you'd moved on. I just wanted to say, you were better to her than she ever deserved. That one caught me off guard. She's on her own now, Linda added. We all are, in a way. I thanked her, then hung up. There was nothing more to say. I stood by the window that night, sipping a glass of wine, watching the city move beneath me. No chaos. No texts. No pleading calls. Just peace. The kind you earn, not find. I'd rebuilt slowly, not just work, but life. Picked up new projects. Reconnected with people who actually gave a damn. Slept better. Smiled more. Learned that letting go of someone who treated you like an option is the most liberating thing you can do. Emily and Tony had made their choices. They gambled on ego, on image, on shortcuts. And now, they were left with exactly what they'd built, nothing that could hold. I didn't need to watch them fall. I didn't need to say, I told you so. Their silence said it for me. The reckoning had already come, and this time, it wasn't mine to carry. It was theirs. Completely. Irrevocably. And I had already walked away.